So, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so for tonight's recording, we are going to take a look at different types of floating island systems, and we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of some of these different designs. Okay, so let's open up a Google web page, like a web search, and just type in ocean floating island designs, which I already did. Okay, and so I highlighted just the first one already, and I recognize this particular one. I can't remember the name, but I definitely remember seeing this around the Seasteading Institute years ago. Um, this was so this design. I think that was started actually by Patrick Friedman, and he published like his basic design, and then allowed other people to basically take the design and adapt it. And I think this is one of the submissions from somebody who adapted Patrick Friedman's design, and this is like from way back, way back. Yeah, so that one, here's another version of the same platform. Okay, and then this one as well. You can see all four of them. I mean, all of them have these kind of like four main areas. Is it? Oh, I guess I can't. Yeah, like there's four pillars coming up. Um, Four vertical areas coming up, like a cross hatch. Um, so this is a spar. It's like a multiple spar uh, tower type. It's a spar design. So basically, there's cylinders that go down under the surface of the ocean, far deep below the surface, and those pillars, those columns, have basically empty space to allow them to be buoyant. Okay, they're made of metal or concrete, and they'll have empty space inside so that they will weigh less than the water around them. And if they weigh enough less, then they'll provide buoyancy going upward and holding up everything above it. Now, I like this particular size for an early on seastead, but the trouble is that it is still too big to really be useful for the first like earliest seasteads. Now, you know, given some time, you once people start taking root with smaller seasteads, like single family seasteads, yeah, then we could do something bigger like this. And this was always a really good design, in my opinion. Also, a few years after this one, I think it was like the mid 2010s, you started to see this design a lot. So, gosh, I'm trying to think. Oh, Kokomo Island by Migaloo. And Migaloo, not only did they have this design for the island? Oh my God, what a cool island, right? That was such a cool design. But they also had a it was called a yacht, like a submersible yacht submarine. That is cool. That's really cool. Um, but unfortunately, I guess his designs were so expensive, and um, nobody ever actually built one. And unfortunately, I would have loved to see that built, but I mean, they were beautiful renderings. It was a beautiful idea. So it's very unfortunate, but it's a very expensive design, and it wasn't compelling enough at the time, or even now, because there's just not a market for it. There's nobody who has the power to build it and fund it. So hasn't happened. Okay, so that's kind of one of the disadvantages. And it's a great design that could be used on the open ocean. Mm, I don't know what sea state would be the maximum sea state of waves and stuff. If could it handle a Category 5 hurricane? Probably not. But actually, maybe it might. Depending on just how robustly it was built. Um, but this is something that you could put way out in the ocean, or you closer in and moor it. You could leave it there for a long time, or eventually move it. Let's try another one. So here's one right here. Fabulous floating villa. Not sure who came up with this design. I'm not familiar with it. Um, it's actually really pretty. Like it's the rendering's not that great, but if you just picture the concept, I can see some interior space over here and exterior space with a walkway and some beautiful gardening and stuff. It looks like a very beautiful, elegant design. The trouble with these sort of like surface floating designs is that they really do have a lot of sort of like wave motion because they look pretty on their on the computer screen, but and the reality is these things are going to be affected by constant waves. Now, I did see another design. It was much, much bigger. Let's see if I can find it. Oh gosh. Love to talk about these. This Utopia one was so cool. Man, that was cool. Okay, so let's go back. So there was one that was huge. It was like a concrete, this one. So here's one that floats on the surface. Um, at least the outer ring does. And it's a pretty large system. It's a large design. But you gotta consider, like, really how big are the waves on the ocean. Check this one out. Blue Island Estate. What a cool design, right? But again, this one floats on the surface. I love the design. I think I might have actually done some of the early conceptual work on this because I was paid to make an early conceptual model, but I guess they didn't continue using me to build out the model. But I remember doing a model a few years back that was just like this, very similar, just with less detail. And God, this would float right on the surface, and I think it's easy to underestimate the power of the surface waves. I mean, most of the time you're going to have small waves, but when you do have a higher sea state, which is like higher waves, that's going to be a very uncomfortable environment. Don't you think? I mean, would you really want to have your whole family, like grandma, grandpa, out there on an island like that? It could be very uncomfortable for them. So it's one thing that's pretty important to discuss. Like, what is the minimum size of a surface floating structure that can be left out on the ocean permanently? Because you have to like account for 100-year storms basically if you have these multi-billion-dollar structures on the ocean. So, I mean, whether it's concrete or steel, I think it's still going to have the same dynamics as a floating vessel, you know? And like, what would be the minimum size? And what would be the maximum size that can be built realistically, in a dry dock without having to, because with a solid structure like that, you need to build a dry dock as big or bigger than that whole entire structure. So, oh gosh, I mean, could you imagine like excavating an enormous area so that you could build one of these? I mean, hopefully you get to build hundreds of them or more, but or dozens at least. But like this particular structure right here, that I mean that would take an enormous dry dock. Just building the dry dock alone would be billions of dollars. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Um. All right. Let's take a look at some of these other designs. Oh, Dezeen. I think I've seen this. This is like a modular structure. I mean, each one of these individual components is very large, very very large. Um. Oh, I like this. What's this? Space and Sea Water Studio Blue. Wow, that's really cool. See, the nice thing about this is that each one of these like grid shaped designs can can flex. They can flex with the ocean surface. So, you're still going to get some movement up and down and sideways rocking with different sea states, but like I think to me that seems like a much better idea than trying to build one giant structure that floats as like a solid surface floating structure. That's like I don't know, it just doesn't seem practical at all. Well, let's take a look at this. What is this? Wow, look at that. So this is basically a triangle system, a system of triangles. Oh, okay. So you can see in this image there is like basically a mock oil tanker. You see that? Um, and what this whole thing on the water would be what they, if I've heard them call it in the past, a very large floating structure, VLFS. And in fact, there was a team in San Diego that was specifically designing VLFS. I spoke to them like once, like many years ago. Um, it's a cool design. I mean, it seems so obvious to think of like a triangle system like this, but it is nice to see that somebody like built it up, a mock-up, and put it on this test facility, this water, test facility. It's really cool. Gosh, that is cool. I wonder who this gentleman is. Check this one out. Wow. Wow, that is so cool. So they basically have like a floating port, which is an important part of like colonizing the ocean is like having floating ports because you need to be able to, transfer materials, goods and materials from one floating city to another one. Okay. Gosh, let's just take a moment and look at some of these pictures. These are pretty awesome. Wow. Gosh, they really put some effort into this. It's so cool. Wow, I didn't even know about these. Oh my gosh. This is so amazing that they built all this design work. I would just love to see them make some more progress. It looks like they definitely got some funding though, right? Okay, so what else? This is a smaller structure. So this is not like an offshore structure. This is like it would work for like a small um like a small group of people of, you know, two, three, maybe two, three, four. Um, More like one, realistically, like one person to be comfortable, and then occasionally have guests. But it wouldn't be good for like more than, you know, a few hundred yards off the coast. You know, this is not going to get out into the you know, 12 mile and further zone. So it's not going to get out of the territorial waters of a nation. So, oh, I remember this. What a cute design, but like, what were they really thinking, you know? I remember that design. These pictures are all from a design contest like many years ago, 10, 15 years ago probably. Mm. Here's another one where it's like it's a solid, you know, floating on the surface kind of structure. Unless this is built up out of sand, you know, from the sea floor, you know, in a shallow sea, you know, near the shore. Because if this is a floating structure, yeah, that would not last at all. It looks pretty on the internet, on your computer screen, but no, that would not last. Again, here's those lily pad things. This was one of the earlier ones, the earlier designs from like, gosh, I think these pictures started to circulate probably 2008 or 2009. So yeah, that's how good this. I mean, as far as 3D modeling and rendering, that's some really good 3D modeling and rendering for the technology and computers that they had back then. Um, but again, like this is a solid structure that floats on the surface. It's not elevated above. It's not underneath to the surface. So it's it has to deal with the surface, you know, roughness and turbulence. If you're under the surface, you can get away from it, from that turbulence. Most of it. A lot worse, and it's a lot better under the surface than it is right on the surface. And if you're raised above the surface, then it's only the flotation surfaces that are interacting with the surface and underneath the surface of the water, you know. So it'd be great to be raised up above, but it's way more expensive. So here's an example of one way to do it. This is called a swath structure. Let's use this example where it's called a swath. Let me see. What does swath stand for? Swath vessel. Small waterplane area twin hull. Yeah, that's what it was. So this is that. So basically, you have this smaller amount of hull that's underneath of the surface, and you have most of the floating structure well above the surface. And then this would be, um, honestly, I mean, this would be a pretty comfortable floating island. Why on earth did they? Why on earth do they have roads on this floating? Like, I mean, the design doesn't make a lot of sense, but it sure looks pretty, and it got a lot of press back in you know, I think the early 2010s is when that one came out. You can tell I've been following this, you know, floating island stuff for a long time, but it's funny. I look around every now and then and realize there's something that I missed. You know, like those test structures in that test tank. That was pretty amazed about that. I've never seen them before. Okay, so God, what's this? Wasn't that beautiful? You know, that's another example right here where it looks pretty, but what does it really achieve? I mean, for all of the cost of building all of this crap, honestly, you know, you see how smooth the water looks in this rendering. And naturally, they didn't want it to make it look very rough because clearly these structures aren't good for rough seas. These structures are hardly good for being offshore at all. I mean, you'd really be better off in a lake at best, a small lake, a bay at best. Because if you were on the Chesapeake Bay or the San Francisco Bay with this kind of structure, and any kind of storm or heavy winds caused a rough water surface, then these things are going to take some damage, and just don't see how that would be realistic. Hmm. This is kind of cute. Somebody just took a barge, just took a barge and made a garden on it. Now tell me that they've got like a stairwell that goes down and then there's like a whole living space inside, and I'm impressed. Like, that's pretty cool. you know? Okay, here's another one where it's a large structure that floats right on the surface. It's very close to the surface. I mean, like the part where you can walk, and as pretty as it looks, I mean, it looks more like a student design sort of image. It's all about the image, you know, instead of really being realistic. Just looking to see how this 3D model was built. Yeah, pretty cool. All right, so what's this one? Oh, this is that old Polynesian island concept. Unfortunately, the Polynesians canceled it on them. Yeah, the Polynesians didn't like the Polynesian Floating Island Project. Hmm. I'd like to call this one half baked, but honestly, not even. Sorry. I'm sorry. If that's yours, I'm sorry. It's cute. It is cute. That's another one that would just get ripped apart. So here is a very real design. This one was designed by WaterStudio.nl. I forget the gentleman's name there, but it's the actually it's 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 was developed for ocean builders, and it's a really good design. Like, they've actually built one that looks like this and floated it out on the water in real life, and it's cool. It's very cool. It's expensive. They have a simpler design that's more realistic, I think, until they can really build them in mass and make these sexy ones. But honestly, this kind of sexy looking design is less practical. It doesn't really give you as much usable space um, as the other design that they have. Okay, so hmm, what is this? I remember seeing this Project Utopia. Naval architecture. I think this was more around like the earlier to 2010s or mid 2010s, if I remember correctly. I remember that's when I started seeing this design. Project Utopia. I mean, that's cool how just this part and below is the flotation structure. And then I guess these little these little triangle things sticking out would help break the waves as the waves come toward each pillar. Um, how would they build this in a dry dock? I guess they'd have to have a dry dock that pretty much is bigger than the entire structure. I mean, unless they can somehow make this modular. I mean, that would require quite a huge dry dock. The cool thing about dry docks is that if you make floating dry docks, they can get basically a floating dry dock. There is no, I don't know of any practical limitation to a floating dry dock. Um, I mean, of course, they can get enormously expensive, but if the industry for floating islands was big enough, yeah, you could have floating dry docks of nearly limitless size. Mm. What's this? Ah, that's a really nice rendering. Oh gosh, this looks a lot like well, the islands in Dubai, but those ones are just sand built up. It's not a floating island. So, and these, I mean, I don't. They don't look like they would be practical floating islands. What's this? Holy smokes! Yona Beach Club in Phuket. Wow, I like it. That's so beautiful. I wonder how. Wow, I wonder where the accommodation is. Oh gosh, I've never seen this before. How come it's not coming into a clear? Where's my clear version? Wow, look at that. I think this is a rendering. Is this a rendering? God, it's hard to tell if it's a rendering or not. Gosh. I mean, this looks like a real image, probably. Why is the water so green? Hmm. Wow, this looks really nice. I mean, what do people actually do on these little bed things, though? I mean, come on, let's imagine you're at a party, they're playing music. How long are you really gonna lay on this bed thing with your girlfriend? Like, don't think so. I mean, sorry, I would sit there, maybe have a few drinks, but I'm getting up, I'm moving around like that. I didn't, my whole vacation is not just laying on this bed thing. Like, how many margaritas can you drink? Like, being realistic. It's just all bed things. I don't know like what the market is for. I guess they just have people come out on this thing for like a few hours at a time. Because obviously you wouldn't like spend a week on it or anything like that. That would just be obnoxious. Mm. Hmm. I'm not really sure I'm not even sure what the purpose of this one is. Like I don't know why. Who would build that? Who would pay for that? Like what's the use of it? This one right here, I just don't. I honestly just don't like this design. Hmm. So much glass. Why are these things covered with glass? Like the walkways going out to each pod part are like covered in glass. Is that right? If that's true, hard for me to get excited about it. There's so many that I don't see showing up on this Google search. There's like I don't know if you remember, there was these, what do they call them? Like sea scrapers. See, they were basically these super tall, really high, like, well, really deep structures. They were like very vertical, and they just go down and down and down, lots of different levels. Um, Maybe I can Google that. Yeah, like that. Like, how come that didn't show up when I put floating islands? Have you ever heard of this? A sea scraper? Now, what the hell were these things coming off, like going at different angles? I don't know. Where were you supposed to build this structure? Like, come on. Actually, now let me mention something on that. So you could actually, just have a steel like gantry system that's about as wide as this structure, and then as you build it, it sinks, and then you build more up top, and then it sinks, and you build more up top, and it sinks. So perhaps that could be the idea for the construction of it. Oh, and they had this one too. I'm not sure really I understand that concept. A lot of these concepts are just not good. Like there's just so many times when somebody like was just trying to like make a design for their college course or something. It just they just wanted to look sexy. They just wanted to grab people's attention. But there's no practical use. Like it's not practical to build. It's not practical, to actually use it. It wouldn't survive on the ocean surface. Um, what? Oh, do you remember this like stingray thing? Oh man, I really ought to make just a video of like the worst seasteading ideas. Just the absolute worst. You know what? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make another video with just the worst seasteading ideas. What's this supposed to be? Like a hat on the ocean? Come on. That's what I'm gonna do. Top 10 worst seasteading designs and top 10 best. Keep an eye out for those videos because that's for sure gonna be a thing. Just take me a little time to like really put it together. Right now my videos are very like they're just low effort. Mm. So this one was I think from back in the 1990s in Japan, like near Tokyo, this was the idea, and like this pyramid shape is literally supposed to be like a mile high, and like each of there's like sub pyramids within the pyramid, and each of those is as tall as a skyscraper that you're used to on the modern world. So okay, enough of that. My channel is not about these kind of like BS nonsense ideas. We'll sit there and talk about it just to tear it up because honestly, the BS nonsense concept ideas really undermine the presence and the momentum of realistic seasteads and colonization efforts. And I don't support those. I just wish people would label them like this is trash. Like you should just say right on it, this is trash. We know it. We just know when we made these pretty looking pictures that this design is useless, but we just we wanted to get people to click on it, you know. Could you just would you look at that? Would you just look at that? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Very cute. Very like if you were just like you just popped into existence and you floated through this opening and you're like, whoa, cool. It'd be like a movie set. You know what I mean? Like it would make an impression on you if it was a movie set. But it's like as far as like being a permanent structure that people live in and rely on for years and decades. Decades. You have to go, you have to think in terms of decades with any, major floating structure, obviously. God, these just get worse and worse. How did I get into this area of total nonsense designs? I need to go back to my other tab because these are just horrible. This is like the lily pads, but I guess somebody else. Hmm. Hmm. I kind of do. I kind of do like this design. So now let's take a look at this together, okay? look at now, so take some of these little extra pieces away. Okay, just clear away some of these boats in your mind. Okay, look underneath it here. You can sail a boat, or more realistically, like, well, you could use sailboats, I guess, and just trawl your way in with a motor. Most sailboats have motors, right? Um, for when they need it. This is beautiful. I don't know what you do with this part. Like, what do you use? Can you make it like a stairs coming down? And like, what use could you make for that? But I love this kind of like huge glass. Like, I bet inside would be a very beautiful atrium. But you don't need like one, two, a three, a four. You don't need four giant mega atriums, because they're kind of expensive. If you're going to spend that money, you might as well use it to build more usable space. you know? Hmm. Okay, so let's go back to this other page. Yep, cute little doggies. That's a good thing to have on your floating island, right? Yeah, I remember these. This was one of I think it was published in a magazine. At the time, it was cool, you know? I mean, obviously, it's pretty stupid to build tiki huts on top of a mega yacht. Like, tiki huts? Like, come on. Go on YouTube and look at tours of what they've got on real mega yachts. Like the environments that they offer. I mean, they're incredible. You just wouldn't be able to compete with no stupid tiki hut on a mega yacht. That's for darn sure. Okay. Okay. Um, let's just say nope on that one. Here's like an interior space of someone's floating island design. That's cool. I guess if you're having like a big garden party, I don't know what else you use that space for. Well, feels like I'm running out of pictures here to critique and criticize. So, guess what, folks? I do have some of my own designs to bring up, and I'd love to share those. Um, this is beautiful, but again, I don't know. Oh, this has got like some kind of pods. So it's kind of similar to other like resorts where you have like a big walkway and then like these small pods, but these are more like a futuristic shape and design, and with like a meeting place, hopefully like a party place. Pretty cool. The Shea Barra Resort. Like it. I like it. What's this? Oh, they actually build that? Wow. It's, oh my gosh. Wow. Floating villas on the Red Sea. Let's click that. Oh my gosh, they're like reflective steel? No, I don't want to log in or register. Can I X out? Wow. These are cool, dude. Oh, let me click on this so I can see what time frame this was made. 11 months ago. Oh, let's see if there is other pictures. Is this a real image? Doesn't really look like a real image. They've been building this for, those video was posted a year ago, so and now they don't even have better pictures of it. a year later? Like finished pictures or progress pictures? Damn, that is cool, man. That is some cool looking stuff. Really cool. Well, anyway, I don't know what they're doing, but that's cool. Looks cool at least. And at least it's like small scale, on the shore, near the shore. So anyway, guys, I think that pretty much. Oh gosh, real quick. Sorry this didn't come up, but yeah, it just $8 billion turtle. Stupid, man. Just stupid. Just get real. Get real. I'd love to just sit here and curse these guys out. This is the dumbest. This is the dumbest. If you build this multi-billion-dollar turtle and then you actually like put little houses along the inside, this is why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Terrible. Just terrible. Now, okay, here's another idea. Just take some offshore drilling rigs or offshore rigs and deconstruct them and build them into luxury outposts. I mean, these oil companies have unlimited money. They do things right. You know what I mean? They do things with quality and they do things with very robust engineering. They have to. I mean, the stuff makes a lot of money. It just needs to work. So it's always been a great idea to like buy existing, oil structures. There's thousands of them. There's like at least 6,000 of them in the Gulf of Mexico alone. And then you have some in the North Sea near England. You have tons of them all over the world. There's thousands and thousands. And, as the oil dries up in those areas, it does. It runs out. And if it's not a floating structure, they can't move it. It's stuck. So they can lift it up and put it on a boat and take it to like Southeast Asia where they recycle the entire thing and sell it for scrap. With a floating one, a lot of times they can move it a little further out or they can keep drilling and pumping more oil and gas. But, if you had enough money to offer, you could buy one and rehabilitate it. Would be kind of cool. Would be really cool. Just needs to be done right. Honestly, I think that the cruise industry, if the cruise industry really set their mind to it, they have the money because, they build cruise ships. If the cruise industry really put their mind to it, they could build permanent, floating, non-movable structures, or at least permanently positioned structures that are moored down. And I think that would be spectacular. I feel like that is the next step past cruising. Because the cruise industry has really figured out what people are willing to pay for and how much they're willing to pay for it. Where's the market? So I feel like the cruise industry is the best for building floating structures, and how much bigger do cruise ships really need to get? Like why wouldn't they just build a floating structure that they could just ferry you out to on a boat or land you out there with a I don't know. I mean, they have seaplanes and stuff like that, but yeah, that would be great if they could build just enormous floating structures and fly people directly out to them. They would have to start with a whole floating airport and then build the floating structure around the airport. So think about that. Wow. Anyway, thanks for spending some time with me. This video lasted a bit longer than I was planning, You know, I tell myself I'm just going to talk for 10 or 20 minutes. Um, but then, I find more interesting stuff to talk about. All right. Well, join me again pretty soon. Rich Allen signing off.